Hello and welcome to this final first look exploring session looking at "'Tis Pity She's a Whore" by John Ford, written sometime between 1621 and 1631, though generally the latter date is more likely because it gets printed in 1633, and usually by this point plays go on the market, circulate in the repertoire for a couple of years, and then they go, nah, it's done enough, let's pull it out there in print. But there are exceptions to that, and so that is the sort of general reach of the dating. We are going from Act 4, Scene 2 for this session, and we're going to find out where it's all going to go. Act 4 opened with a mask. Masks often aren't very happy in tragedies, and indeed someone did end up being poisoned towards the end of it, which they've cleared away the body, so now so that's nice and tidy. As say, we dive into the rest of Act 4 and complete the play. Reading today the part of Giovanni, who's very fond of his sister, and Donado is.
Hi, I'm Greg. Looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Reading Soranzo and Putana today is
Kyle in Tucson.
Reading, certainly for the first half of this session, Philotis, Annabella, and possibly Cardinal, depending on how quickly we get through things, is
Hi, Olga.
And reading Vasques is
Hi, I'm Lynn. This is Scooter. We live in the Northwestern United States.
And reading Richardetto, Friar, Banditti, and Florio is
Helen with a split personality and stuff.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions and jumping in if some of the doubling doesn't work. But without further ado, having had the fairly disastrous wedding mask, we are going to slip into the one of the B or C plot, depending on your point of view, as the still indisguised Richardetto and Philotis are going to take the stage for another one of these very short scenes. We've got a lot of short scenes in this play. Act 4, Scene 2. Enter Richardetto and Philotis.
My wretched wife, more wretched in her shame than in her wrongs to me, has paid too soon the forfeit of her modesty and life. And I'm sure, my niece, though vengeance hover, keeping aloof yet from Soranzo's fall, yet he will fall and sink with his own weight. I need not, now my heart persuades me so, to further his confusion. There is one above begins to work, for as I hear, debates already twixt his wife and him thicken and run to head. She, as 'tis said, slightens his love, and he abandons hers. Much talk I hear, since things go thus, my niece, in tender love and pity of your youth. My counsel is that you should free your years from hazard of these woes by flying hence to fair Cremona, there to vow your soul in holiness a holy votaress. Leave me to see the end of these extremes. All human worldly courses are uneven. No life is blessed but the way to heaven.
Uncle, shall I resolve to be a nun?
Ay, gentle niece, and in your hourly prayers remember to put your poor unhappy uncle. Hie to Cremona now, as fortune leads, your home, your cloister, your best friends, your beads, your chaste and single life shall crown your birth. Who dies a virgin, live a saint on earth.
Then farewell, world, and worldly thoughts adieu. Welcome, chaste vows, myself I yield to you.
And exit. Okay, now I have previously stated that my slight problem of the only character in the play I have a really big problem with is Philotis, as being a character who is mostly there for exposition to be thrown at. Say, could you tell me the plot, please, Uncle? Yeah. And she's just going off now to disappear to be a nun, and is there to be a plot device. And I'm assuming she doesn't pop back and suddenly do exciting adventure stuff. This is the one element of the plot where I'm really quite disappointed. If this is really it, another little scene just to sort of remind us, and as it follows immediately on from the death of Richardetto's wife, it is a nice reiteration on one level that of his plans and his plans for revenge, But yes, there is something unsatisfactory there. Lynn, were you waving?
There's basically ditto. That everybody in this play has a character except Philotis. We never know what her motivations are, what her personality is like. I mean, I think a good actor could make that character come to life in some way. But yeah, it's a bit of a letdown because you feel like everyone else has a personality, and Philotis he didn't bother to create some kind of character for her.
I mean, there might be a structural reason. It might be that this is for the youngest boy actor at the company. They're not giving them a big role because they're testing them out. They're still apprentice. It's really just to see whether, where they fit in the room. It might be something like that. But even with a small amount of dialogue, sometimes Ford is able to make people pop in an interesting way. Even if they don't say a lot, they can say more than this character ever does. And it's like, become a nun. Off you go. Bye. Let's get you off stage. Because it's not even like they need to double as somebody else later on, as far as I can tell. Yeah. So it's not even there's a different structural reason. It just seems to be a deliberately small role. Any other thoughts on this short scene? There isn't a lot to say, really. It's sort of just bedding us back into the play. I say, a sort of little coda to the previous scene, actually. Although, again, it also is sort of giving the impression that time has passed, that and it's set up Soranzo is a bit worried about his relationship with his wife, which, of course, we all know there's a reason why that would be. He's got some doubts about it all. So, yeah. Let's dive into a much more meaty, longer scene as we go into Act 4, Scene 3, then. Enter Soranzo unbraced and Annabella dragged in.
Come, strumpet, famous whore, where every drop of blood that runs in thy adulterous veins, a life this sword doth seize, should you in one blow confound them all. Harlot, rare, notable harlot, that with thy brazen face maintainest thy sin, was there no man in Parma to be bawd to your loose cunning whoredom else but I? Must your hot itch and pleurisy of lust, the heyday of your luxury, be fed up to a surfeit, and could none but I be picked out to be cloaked to your close tricks, your belly sports? Now I must be the dad to all that gallimaufry that's stuffed in thy corrupted bastard-bearing womb. Say, must I?
Beastly man, why 'tis thy fate. I sued not to thee, but that I thought your over-loving lordship would have run mad on denial. Had you lent me time, I would have told thee in what case I was, but you would needs be doing.
Whore of whores, darest thou tell me this?
Oh yes, why not? You were deceived in me. 'Twas not for love I chose you, but for honour. Yet know this. Would you be patient yet and hide your shame? I'd see whether I could love you.
Excellent queen. Why art thou not with child?
What needs all this when 'tis superfluous? I confess I am.
Tell by whom?
Soft sir, 'twas not in my bargain. Yet somewhat, sir, to stay your longing stomach, I'm content to acquaint you with the man, the more than man that got this sprightly boy, for 'tis a boy, that for glory, sir, your heir shall be a son.
Damnable monster.
And you will not hear, I'll speak no more.
You speak, and speak thy last.
A match. This noble creature was in every part so angel-like, so glorious, that a woman who had not been but human as I was I, would have kneeled to him and have begged for love. Why, you are not worthy once to name his name without true worship, or indeed, unless you kneeled to hear another name him.
What was he called?
We're not come to that. Let it suffice that you shall have the glory to father what so brave a father got. In brief, had not this chance fallen out as doth, I never had been troubled with the thought that you had been a creature, but for marriage I scarce dreamed yet of that.
Tell me his name.
Alas, alas, there's all, will you believe?
What?
You shall never know.
How?
Never. If you do, let me be cursed.
Not know it, strumpet? I'll rip up thy heart and find it there.
Do.
And with my teeth tear the prodigious lecher joint by joint.
The man's merry.
Dost thou laugh? Come, whore, tell me your lover, or by truth I'll hew thy flesh to shreds. Who is it?
Che morte pius dolce, che morire per amore.
Thus will I pull thy hair, and thus I'll drag thy lust-belepered body through the dust. Yet tell me his name.
Morende in gratia lei, morire senza dolore.
Dost thou triumph? The treasure of the earth shall not redeem thee. Where their kneeling kings did beg thy life, our angels did come down to plead in tears, yet should not all prevail against my rage. Dost thou not tremble yet?
At what? To die? No, be a gallant hangman. I dare thee to the worst. Strike, and strike home. I leave revenge behind, and thou shalt feel 't.
Yet tell me ere thou diest, and tell me truly, knows thy old father this?
No, by my life.
Wilt thou confess, and I will spare thy life?
My life? I will not buy my life so dear.
I will not slack my vengeance.
Enter Vasques.
He means, sir.
Forbear, Vasques, such a damned whore deserves no pity.
Now the gods forfend. And would you be her executioner and kill her in your rage too? Oh, 'twere most unmanlike. She is your wife. What faults have been done by her before she married you were not against you. Alas, poor lady, what hath she committed which any lady in Italy in the like case would not? Sir, you must be ruled by your reason and not by your fury. That were unhuman and beastly.
She shall not live.
She must. You would have her confess the authors of her present misfortunes, I warrant ye. 'Tis an unconscionable demand, and she should lose the estimation that I, for my part, hold of her worth. If she had done it, why, sir, you ought not of all men living to know it. Good sir, be reconciled. Alas, good gentlewoman.
Pish, do not beg for me. I prize my life as nothing. If the man will needs be mad, well, let him take it.
Vasques, hearest thou this?
Yes, and commend her for it. In this she shows the nobleness of a gallant spirit, and beshrew my heart, but it becomes her rarely. Sir, in any case, smother your revenge. Leave the scenting out of your wrongs to me. Be ruled as you respect your honor, or you mar all. Sir, if ever my service were of any credit with you, be not so violent in your distractions. You are married now. What a triumph might the report of this give to other neglected suitors. 'Tis as manlike to bear extremities, as godlike to forgive.
Oh, Vasques, in this piece of flesh, this faithless face of hers, had I laid up the treasure of my heart. Hadst thou been virtuous, fair wicked woman, not the matchless joys of life itself had made me wish to live with any saint but thee. Deceitful creature, how hast thou mocked my hopes, and in the shame of thy lewd womb even buried me alive? I did too dearly love thee.
This is well. Follow this temperer with some passion. Oh, I wonder.
There should be a note of an aside there. You can.
This is well. Follow this temper with some passion. Be brief and moving. 'Tis for the purpose.
Be witness to my words, thy soul and thoughts, and tell me, didst thou not think that in my heart I did too surreptitiously adore thee?
Must confess, I know you loved me well.
And wouldst thou use me thus? O Annabella, be thus assured, whatsoever the villain was that thus hath tempted thee to this disgrace, well he might lust, but never loved like me. He doted on the picture that hung out upon thy cheeks to please his humorous eye, not on the part I loved, which was thy heart, and as I thought, thy virtues.
Oh, my lord, these words wound deeper than your sword could do.
Let me not ever take comfort, but I begin to weep myself, so much I pity him. Why, madam, I knew when his rage was overpast what it would come to.
Forgive me, Annabella. Though thy youth hath tempted thee above thy strength to folly, yet will not I forget what I should be, and what I am, a husband. In that name is hid divinity. If I do find that thou wilt yet be true, here I remit all former faults, and take thee to my bosom.
By my troth, that's a point of noble charity.
Sir, on my knees.
Rise up, you shall not kneel. Get you to your chamber. See you make no show of alteration. I'll be with you straight. My reason tells me now that 'tis as common to err in frailty as to be a woman. Go to your chamber.
Exit Annabelle, and there we will pause for a moment. The scene is reasonably chunky, and we've got quite a lot going on. I'm really interested at the beginning of this scene as Soranzo confronts Annabella, how physical this seems to be. Though we don't have stage directions beyond the dragged in at the beginning, throughout it there seems to be a lot of physicality going on here, and just in contrast to the physicality that Annabella and Giovanni had at the beginning. We were talking about how physical that was, and this is a very different kind of physicality going on here, and sort of talking about the performativeness of this. Lynn?
In the one production I saw several years ago, it was very physical. Yeah, you really, as an audience member, there was very definitely a sense of danger from Soranzo's violence. So yeah, it's a really powerful scene. And yeah, and Annabella, as much as she's sort of the honeypot that everyone is buzzing around, hasn't had a lot to say. I mean, her one big scene was sort of the wooing scene with her brother, which was very sweet in a weird way. And here, boy, she just she is not afraid. I'm not afraid of you. Yeah, she's just so defiant. Especially in the beginning of the scene. Yeah, she just really comes off the page in this scene, and and having this as an actor and knowing that she has this potential all the time, I think could do some really interesting things to her performances earlier in the play.
Yeah, because this is an interrogation. He is determined to find out who the father is.
And she won't do it.
She keeps saying no. And you get to that line, "I will not slack my vengeance," where Vasques comes in. And that's suggesting that there's a ramping up of violence potentially in this scene, and that Vasquez' entrance basically is to stop him from killing her at that point.
Yeah.
That is potentially how far this scene goes. Again, we don't have stage directions. It's a matter of working through with actors what the production wants to do. But there does seem to be that direction, especially when Annabella just starts singing. And it's just the defiance that and all the way through, and again when we go into the next part of the scene, the responses that we're getting from I prize my life as nothing if the man will needs be mad. He's clearly got the problem. Alan, and then Olga.
What I found somewhat implausible was the speed with which Soranzo calmed down once Vasquez had actually intervened. Didn't feel plausible.
Well, he does. There is not properly marked in the script. There is an aside moment when Vasquez says, "Pretend for a moment, sir, to calm down. Let me play the scene out. You know what I'm like."
Not with that man.
Yeah. So the "sir, in any case, smother your revenge" that's the point where he, because Soranzo isn't being calmed down in any of his sort of three little interjections. Vasquez is just tap dancing between them to try and stop him going too far, and then he pulls it back because he's going, okay, there's something politic going on there. Olga.
Well, I just wanted to say from the point of view of someone sight reading Annabella right now, I had a feeling that there was this she tiger waking up in her. She's in protective mode. She might be scared, but she's in a protective mode. She's with child, and there's so she's probably very much ruled by her hormones, and and it is a really strong part, actually. Nice scene.
Yeah, and yes, and that, all of those things can be happening. You know, the elements to what is happening in that scene. Yes, it's one thing to be afraid, but still defiant. I mean, that's more realistic than just defiant. You know,
Yes.
and that again also gives you variance to play here. Does she have moments where potentially she's going, "Oh, maybe I will. No, I won't." And the reactions to whatever Soranzo is doing, whatever the director and the production decides to do with this scene. And then, as I say, we have this scene with Vasques coming in and saying, right, you know, and this is a question where we sort of get to the question about Vasques, because we're such a slippery part.
Isn't he?
Just constantly they come in and they say one thing, and then it turns out later on it was all a lie, and he's just doing all the work then the rest of this scene becomes this sort of play acting until Annabella leaves, and then we'll get what we're about to get to next. No spoilers, any thoughts?
I found the aside that you were talking about. It's offset with long dashes, like smother revenge, leave the scenting of her wrongs to me. I'll figure this out. You know me, I can do this. And then he's back to if my service were ever any credit to you, so that she can hear. So yeah, that makes sense. That Vasques has just got a game going here. He's pretending to sort of be on Annabella's side and saying, "Oh, you know, what's done is done. Forgive her and move on." But you got a couple of little asides where he's like, "Yeah, take care of it. Control yourself." I got it.
Constant stage management going on here, and it's interesting how much they work together. I'll go to Kyle, then Alan.
Yeah, I just thought it's really also kind of beautiful in a Baroque way, like the strangely physical kind of juxtaposition with a high-minded. It's almost like operatic or something emotionally, in a kind of beautiful way. Weirdly, I mean, because the stuff of the content is really problematic, but you know, it's still kind of beautiful in its passions.
Yes, I mean, again, it's so well crafted in terms of the way the dialogue's moving. Alan.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about it, in fact, you've got the previous sequence when Vasques was in discussion with Hippolyta and was acting duplicitously. So I think probably a character note for him is to pay him as a really shifty type in terms of he's out for the main chance.
Yeah, and whereas earlier we weren't sure of his loyalties, whereas I think we're now more firm that he's a Soranzo's man through and through. I don't think we doubt that in the same way as earlier, because earlier we didn't know. He was there talking to Soranzo, and then he immediately spent most of his time with Hippolyta, and we assume he's on Hippolyta's side, and then he poisons her. Whereas here, this is much more of an interaction, and I mean, the play could be playing fast and loose with his loyalties again, but I don't think there's any evidence for that necessarily. Okay, we're still mid-scene. Annabella's been sent out of the room, and we get to hear what these two are going to be talking about, and we will have additional characters joining us as well in a moment. Yes, that does work. I was just looking at the doubling, suddenly going, oh, hang on, no, it's okay. Someone exits before they immediately re-enter. Good. So exit Annabella, leaving Vasques and Soranzo alone.
So, this was somewhat to the matter. And what do you think of your heaven of happiness now, sir?
I carry hell about me. All my blood is fired with swift revenge.
That may be, but know you how, or on whom, alas, to marry a great woman, being made great in the stock to your hand, is a usual sport in these days. But to know what secret it was that haunted your Cunnyberry, there's the cunning.
I'll make her tell herself, or
what? You must not do so. Yet let me yet persuade your sufferance a little while. Go to her, use her mildly, win her, if it be possible, to a weeping tune. For the rest, if all hit, I will not miss my mark. Pray, go in, sir. The next news I tell you shall be wonders.
Delay in vengeance gives a heavier blow.
Exit Soranzo.
Sirrah, here's work for the nonce. I had a suspicion of a bad matter in my head a pretty whiles ago, but after my madam's scurvy looks here at home, her waspish perverseness, and loud fault-finding, then I remembered the proverb, where the hens crow and the cocks hold their peace, there are sorry houses. Foot. If the lower part of a she-tailor's cunning can cover such a swelling in the stomach, I'll never blame a false stitch in a shoe whiles I live again. Up and up so quick, and so quickly too, 'twere a fine policy to learn by whom this must be known, and I have a thought on it. Here's the way or none. What, crying, old mistress? Alas, I cannot blame ye. We have a lord, heaven help us, is so mad as the devil himself. The more shame for him.
For indeed has entered Putana already.
O Vasques, that ever I was born to see this day, doth he use thee so too? Sometimes, Vasques?
Me? Why, he makes a dog of me. But if some were of my mind, I know what we would do. As sure as I am an honest man, he will go near to kill my lady with unkindness. Say she be with child. It is such a matter of a young woman of her years to be blamed for.
Alas, good heart, it is against her will, full sore.
I durst be sworn all this madness is, for that she will not confess who 'tis, which he will know, and when he doth know it, I'm so well acquainted with his humor, he will forget it all straight. Well, I could wish she would in plain terms tell all, for that's the way indeed.
Do you think so?
Oh, I know it, provided that he will not win her to it by force. He was once in a mind that you could tell, and meant to have wrung it out of you, but I somewhat pacified him for that. Yet sure you know a great deal.
Heaven forgive us all. I know a little, Vasques.
Why should you not? Who else should? Upon my conscience, she loves you dearly, and you would not betray her to any affliction in the world.
Not for all the world, by my faith and troth, Vasques.
For pity of your life, if you should, but in this you should relieve her present discomforts, pacify my lord, and gain yourself everlasting love and preferment.
Dost thou think so, Vasques?
Nay, I know it sure, for some near and entire friend.
Was a dear friend indeed, but
what? Fear not to name him. My life between you and danger. Faith, I think it was no base fellow.
thou wilt stand between me and harm?
Pity. What else? You shall be rewarded too, trust me.
Was even no worse than her own brother.
Her brother Giovanni, I warrant ye?
Even he, Vasques, as brave a gentleman as ever kissed fair lady. Oh, they love most perpetually.
A brave gentleman indeed. Why, therein I commend her choice. Better and better. You are sure 'twas he?
Sure, and you shall see he will not be long from her too.
He were to blame if he would. But may I believe thee?
Believe me, why dost thou think I am a Turk or a Jew? No, Vasques, I have known their dealings too long to belie them now.
Where are you? They're within, sirs.
Enter the bandits.
How now? What are these?
You shall know presently. Come, sir, take this old damnable hag, gag her instantly, put out her eyes. Quickly, quickly.
Vasques, Vasques.
Gag her, I say. Foot, do ye suffer her to prate? Do ye fumble about? Let me come to her. I'll help your old gums, you toad-bellied bitch. Sirs, carry her closely into the coal house and put out her eyes instantly. If she roars, slit her nose. Do you hear? Be speedy and sure. Why, this is excellent and above expectation.
And exit the bandits with Putana.
Her own brother. Oh, horrible. To what height of liberty and damnation hath the devil trained our age? her brother. Well, there's yet but a beginning. I must, my lord, and tutor him better in his points of vengeance. Now I see how a smooth tale goes beyond a smooth tale. But soft, what thing comes next?
Enter Giovanni.
Giovanni, as I would wish. My belief is strengthened. 'Tis as firm as winter and summer.
Where's my sister?
A trouble with a new sickness, my lord. She's somewhat ill.
Took too much of the flesh, I believe.
Troth, sir, you and I think have even hit it. But my virtuous lady.
Where is she?
In her chamber. Please you visit her. She is alone. Your liberality hath doubly made me your servant, and ever shall, ever.
Exit Giovanni. Enter Soranzo.
Yes, sir, I am a made man. I have plied my cue with cunning and success. I beseech you, let's be private.
My lady's brother's come. Now he'll know all.
Let him know it. I have made some of them asked enough. How have you dealt with my lady?
Gently, and as thou hast counseled, oh, my soul runs circular in sorrow for revenge. But Vasques, thou shalt know.
Nay, I will know no more. For now comes your turn to know. I would not talk so openly with you. Let my young master take time enough and go at pleasure. He is sold to death, and the devil shall not ransom him. Sir, I beseech you, your privacy.
No conquest can gain glory of my fear.
Exit Soranzo and Vasques at the end of Act 4, and during the interval, as they're trimming the candles, you can just hear Soranzo going, "Her brother!" Because Vasques has this wonderful, sort of, I've got a secret, my lord. I won't tell you now. I'll tell you in a bit when we're off stage. Well, that scene takes a horrible turn for Putana, who we've had ambivalent feelings about throughout. She's really engaging character, but her morals, shall we say, were somewhat adrift earlier. This is a very well structured little drawing out, two servants talking together. Oh, it's for the best. We'll sort it out. And of course, he's got some bugs on tap. I mean, presumably Soranzo just has some people, some private security people who will do whatever they want. I mean, this thing of they gag her, they're going to pluck out her eyes. And also the reference to slitting her nose is the kind of thing that will be done to women who are suggested to have slept with other men, etc. It's a thing that is done. So there's a lot that's quite unpleasant there, and yet we are invited, I think, to really revel with what Vasques is doing here. He's really taken center stage as a character who was quite peripheral at the beginning. Increasingly, as the play's gone on,
Yeah.
and I wonder if this play is just deliberately trying to balance out the parts. It's like Giovanni was very central earlier and then sort of faded out a bit, and other parts faded up and then faded out again. So I'm wondering if this is just a playwright who just knows not to get his main actors totally knackered. Whereas some people write, big parts for just 2 or 3 or 4 actors, and everybody else is sitting going, what's my next line? This play does seem to be quite nicely balanced for an ensemble, actually. I'm just saying words now. Thoughts on the room? I'm just dancing around ideas. But yeah. Lynn.
I forgot all about the Banditti, because I haven't read this since I saw it 8-10 years ago. They just cut the Banditti. And they massage the lines so that Vasques tells her he's going to take her out to the shed and blind her, and then the scene with Soranzo, which really doesn't move the plot forward. We can presume that he goes on to tell his boss what's going on. They just cut that, so you can get rid of the Banditti, just so you know.
Well, I mean, we've got plenty of spare actors. We've got 2 have already been killed, so they just need to come on with masks.
And you only need 2, so yeah.
So in that sense, we know what we know. we know what Baguetto's getting up to after his demise.
Wow. But yeah.
And possibly Poggio as well, actually, because I don't think he reappears as a character. So yeah, we've got plenty of spare bodies, as it were, to take her out. I mean, you know, do we really think she's going to survive? Is she going to turn up later, blind, and you know, or is this just a prelude to, you know, ending up in a river somewhere? It's nobody here. Life is very cheap in this universe because nobody gets punished for killing anyone so far. This one at least is done in secret, whereas the other two have been quite public. So yeah, Olga. Oh no, you weren't waving. Just a hand was in that sort of position. Other thoughts in the room before we? That's the end of Act 4. Kyle.
Yeah, I was just thinking. I agree with what you were saying about like how it's written to kind of spread out the parts in some ways. It also seems like that's like it's kind of choreographed and maximizing emotional complexity in that like it's not just him taking revenge, but it becomes more, he can also be sympathetic in a way at the same time as being angry. And so I don't know, it's interesting because it feels so much like craft still.
Yeah, I mean the thing is Soranzo has Soranzo has a legitimate grievance. The fact that he's willing to take things to an extreme, to violence, goes against that. But you know, he has got a reason to be upset, especially within the play world. But then we also know that on top of that, you know, we know what he's done in the past. He's complicit with murder. You know, none of these people are nice, but their motivations are at least structured. You know, they're not just random motivations. They're all tied together to create.
Yeah, when he doesn't do the revenging, it seems like he can be also more sympathetic at moments too, like more victim as well as revenger.
Yeah, people have lied to him. Several people have lied to him for him to be in this position. Lynn.
Yeah, but he has a line that basically is like, "Delayed revenge is even better." So
yeah, and I say he's got some really nasty people around him. He is employing people who will get stuff done for him, and one can there's a suspicion that this isn't the first time that this kind of stuff has happened. And however much he prances around with a book, pretending to be a Renaissance man at the beginning of the play, that doesn't absolve him from the stuff he does later. And so, especially to Putana's violent disappearance. I don't know whether she returns in the play or not. I suspect not, but maybe she does. I don't know. And that's potentially an interval point to trim the candles. Maybe there's some music playing as we go into the final act. Again, depending on performance context, it doesn't seem to be structured that intervals for indoor performance are essential. But I say certainly it does seem that it was performed at least at some point within an indoor context. So we shall see. Okay, Act 5, Scene 1. We will return another shortish scene. We return to Annabella. Enter Annabella above.
Pleasure's farewell, and all your thriftless minutes, wherein false joys have spun a weary life. To these my fortunes now I take my leave. Thou precious time that swiftly ridst in post over the world to finish up the race of my last fate, here stay thy restless course, and bear to ages that are yet unborn a wretched woeful woman's tragedy. My conscience now stands up against my lust, with dispositions charactered in guilt, and tells me I am lost.
Enter Friar below.
Now I confess, beauty that clothes the outside of the face is cursed if it be not clothed with grace. Here, like a turtle, mewed up in a cage, unmated, I converse with air and walls, and descant on my vile unhappiness. O Giovanni, that hast had the spoil of thine own virtues and my modest fame, would thou hadst been less subject to those stars, that luckless reigned at my nativity. Oh, would the scourge due to my black offence might pass from thee, that I alone might feel the torment of an uncontrolled flame.
This I hear.
That man, that blessed friar, who joined in ceremonial knot my hand to him whose wife I now am, told me oft I trod the path to death and showed me how. But they who sleep in lethargies of lust hug their confusion, making heaven unjust, and so did I.
Here's music to the soul.
Forgive me, my good genius, and this once be helpful to my ends. Let some good man pass this way, to whose trust I may commit this paper double-lined with tears and blood, which being granted, here I sadly vow repentance and a living of that life I long have died in.
Lady, heaven hath heard you, and hath by providence ordained that I should be his minister for your behoof.
What are you?
Your brother's friend, the friar, glad in my soul that I have lived to hear this free confession twixt your peace and you. What would you, or to whom? Dare not to speak.
Is heaven so bountiful? Then I have found more favour than I hoped. Here, holy man.
Throws a letter.
Commend me to my brother. Give him that letter. Bid him read it and repent. Tell him that I, imprisoned in my chamber, barred of all company, even of my guardian, who gives me cause of much suspect, have time to blush at what hath passed. Bid him be wise, and not believe the friendship of my lord. I fear much more than I can speak. Good father, the place is dangerous, and spies are busy. I must break off. You'll do it?
Be sure I will, and fly with speed. My blessing ever rest with thee, my daughter. Live to die more blessed.
And exit Friar.
Thanks to the heavens who have prolonged my breath to this good use. Now I can welcome death.
Exit Annabella. So again, if there are mini intervals for an indoor playhouse, it's sort of a moment to just remind anyone who's maybe just popped out and popped back in again where we are with the plot. A little bit of character direction here. This is something that maybe is underneath the surface of Annabella in the earlier scenes, or something that's happened in between. Annabella has already, to a degree, repented earlier. We had a lengthy scene with the friar previously, so it's an interesting question what this is adding. Is this essentially a recap, or I don't know how important the letter is in terms of moving the plot forward. I'm sure Giovanni will have a reaction to the letter, but there is a very different Annabella in this scene from the previous one. But then I suppose if you are being attacked in the way that you are by Soranzo, you are going to be in a very different mode to this one. Sometimes we are the person we are within different rooms and with two different people. Alan?
Yeah, and you've got the reference in there that she's been severed from contact with her guardian, which is how she referred to Putana. So she's obviously tumbled that there's something gone wrong there.
Yes, and she's imprisoned. I mean, she's imprisoned by her husband. A lot of time to think, and maybe thoughts are running in a not very healthy way as well. And again, we're not quite sure how far she is with the pregnancy, because we were discussing last time how fast time is moving in this play. Is it still just a few days? Is how much time is really passing? Weeks, months? What is the time signature here? Because that does make quite a difference actually to where we go with the play at this point. Because as I say, we've had that some time has occurred for her to be, for Soranzo to have, effectively imprisoned her here, which is an escalation, I think. From he's being nicer to her, but he's not letting her out, and that's obviously different. Kyle.
It's weird, but I mean, she's the victim of all of this stuff, it seems like, in some ways, but weirdly I don't like her. Like, she feels so passive, even though he had that moment where she was singing and saying, she still feels oddly passive to me in the way that she speaks, in the way that she's now defending her brother. I mean, I don't know. She's doing stuff, and she's becoming admirable in some ways that should be more compelling than they are, I feel like.
Yeah,
I feel like the males are better constructed.
I do wonder if there's an inconsistency actually here, with how she's being written. That when mid-flow with the scene with Soranzo, the writer makes something pop, but with something like this, which is perhaps more conventional, she's becoming a much more conventional figure rather than a character. Lynn?
Yeah, it would be challenging for an actor to play this part without the seams showing. I'm kind of with Kyle. I'm a little disappointed with the internalized misogyny in this scene. When she says, "Oh, my poor brother, would thou hadst been less subject to those stars that luckless reigned at my nativity." So in a way, it's like it's all my fault. It's like it's my bad stars that basically made you fall in love with me. Somehow it's all my fault. Oh, would the scourge due to my black offense might pass from thee, that I alone might feel the torment. Like, I'm the only one that, I hope I'm the only one who's punished for this terrible thing that's happened. Like, he didn't initiate this. It's like, it's not his fault. So that sort of underlying assumption that somehow women and the temptation of women is to blame for men's bad behavior. That's a little disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, we can play a little devil's advocate in the sense that a person living in that time probably would internalize a certain amount of misogyny, but where there's potential for complexity in this text, and how that might flow. And I say I don't feel Annabella as a character flows particularly well. It does seem that we go from a different scene, a different room. Joining us, Sarah Blake has joined us in the room. We'll be taking on some roles a little further on in a moment, and we will continue on from this point. We're at Act 5, Scene 2. It is another relatively short scene. They will lengthen out in a moment. So Act 5, Scene 2. Enter Soranzo and Vasques.
I could be believed now. First marry a strumpet that cast herself away upon you, but to laugh at your horns, to feast on your disgrace, riot on your vexations, cuckold you in your bride bed, waste your estate upon panders and bawds.
No more, I say, no more.
A cuckold is a goodly tame beast, my lord.
I am resolved, urge not another word. My thoughts are great and all as resolute as thunder. In meantime, I'll cause Our Lady to deck herself in all her bridal robes, kiss her and fold her gently in my arms. Begone. Yet hear you. Are the banditti ready to wait in ambush?
Good sir, trouble not yourself about other business than your own resolution. Remember that time lost cannot be recalled.
With all the cunning words thou canst, invite the states of Parma to my birthday feast. Haste to my brother rival and his father. Entreat them gently, bid them not to fail. Be speedy and return.
Let not your pity betray you till my coming back. Think upon incest and cuckoldry.
Revenge is all the ambition I aspire. To that I'll climb or fall. My blood's on fire.
And exit. So, Soranzo and Vasques have a plan. What is the plan? Did they actually explain the plan, or did they just say there's a plan? And that the banditti who were mentioned, who we saw earlier, whisking in to do some blinding, have clearly got a contract, an ongoing service contract.
They're on retainer.
They're on retainer for the Soranzos. I mean, he's wealthy. He's got nobility. I'm sure he has quite an extensive staff and probably his own private torture chamber in the basement. That's. I wouldn't put it past it. The more I meet Soranzo, that kind of thing. But no, we don't really get any details as to what they're going to do. It's one of these just scenes to just remind us that the plot's moving forward. Just popping in. Were you waving, Kyle?
Yeah, it seems like he's going to invite them all to his birthday party and kill them, right? Does that sounded kind of like It was vaguely that, right?
Yeah, I think that's sort of the area. It's another potential mask situation, isn't it? And we're going, well, if it's an Act 5 mask, then who's going to come out of that? Probably not very many people. It's there ain't no party like a private murder party. That's what we're heading towards, I suspect. And I say by the 1630s, people are very aware of this as a thing. This is a very well-worn direction of travel. So yeah, okay. I don't think there's much more to say about that. Let's dive into another shortish scene, Act 5, Scene 3. We have the arrival. Hasn't said a lot so far this act. Giovanni.
Busy opinion is an idle fool. That as a school rod keeps a child in awe, frights the unexperienced temper of the mind. So did it me, who ere my precious sister was married, thought all taste of love would die in such a contract. But I find no change of pleasure in this formal lord of sports. She is still one to me, and every kiss as sweet and as delicious as the first I reaped. When yet the privilege of youth of two united hearts like hers and mine, let poring bookmen dream of other worlds. My world and all of happiness is here, and I'd not change it for the best to come. A life of pleasure in Elysium.
And enter Friar.
Father, you enter on the jubilee of my retired delights. Now I can tell you the hell you oft have prompted is naught else but slavish and fond superstitious fear, and I could prove it too.
Thy blindness slays thee. Look there, 'tis writ to thee.
And gives a letter.
From whom?
Unrip the seals and see. The blood's yet seething hot that will anon be frozen harder than congealed coral. Why'd you change colour, son?
For heaven, you make some petty devil factor twixt my love and your religion masked sorceries. Where had you this?
Thy conscience youth is seared, else you would stoop to warning.
'Tis a hand, I know it, and 'tis all written in her blood. She writes, I know not what. Death! Ha! I'll not fear an armed thunderbolt aimed at my heart. She writes, we are discovered. Pox on dreams of low faint-hearted cowardice. Ha! Discovered! The devil we are! Ha! Which way is it possible? Are we growing traitors to our own delights? Confusion takes such dotage, 'tis all but forged. This is your peevish, chattering, weak old man. Now, sir, what news brings you?
And enter Vasques.
Lord, according to his yearly custom, keeping this day a feast in honor of his birthday, by me invites you thither. Your worthy father, with the Pope's Reverend Nuncio and other magnificos of Parma, have promised their presence. Will it please you to be of the number?
Oh, yes, tell them I dare come.
Dare come?
Oh, so I said, and tell him much more. I will come.
These words are strange to me.
Say, I will come.
You will not miss.
Yet more, I'll come. Sir, are you answered?
So I'll say, my service to you.
And exit Vasques.
You will not go, I trust?
Not go? For what?
Oh, do not go. This feast I'll gauge my life. It's but a plot to train you to your ruin. You ruled, you shall not go.
Not go! Stood death threatening his armies of confounding plagues with hosts of dangers, hot as blazing stars. I would be there! Not go? Yes, and resolved to strike as deep in slaughter as they all, for I will go.
Go where thou wilt. I see the wildness of thy fate draws to an end, to a bad, fearful end. I must not stay to know thy fall. Back to Bononia I, with speed will haste, and shun this coming blow. Parma, farewell. would I had never known thee, thought of thine. Well, young man, since no prayer can make thee safe, I leave thee to despair.
And exit the friar.
Despair or tortures of 1,000 hells, all's one to me. I have set up my rest. Now, work serious thoughts on baneful plots, be all a man my soul. Let not the curse of old prescription rent from me the gall of courage, which enrolls a glorious death. If I must totter like a well-grown oak, some undershrub shall in my weighty fall be crushed to splits. With me they shall all perish.
Exit Giovanni. So, Giovanni, not in a great state of mind. I'd say it's not looking good there. And yeah, the Soranzo plot is becoming clearer. It is indeed honor of his birthday. Plot. And the friar's right. It's don't go. Just say, sorry. I'm
Gotta wash my hair.
I'm washing my hair. I need to buy a bag of sugar. Lynn, then Greg.
Yeah. So we were talking a minute ago about Annabella seems a little all over the place. She seems really passive, and then she actually seems really quite defiant in her confrontation with Soranzo. And then she's next scene it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, and this is all my fault. So like you don't kind of know like who is she. Giovanni, on the other hand, just he's himself and becoming more so. He is ruled by his passions. He's all brainstem and no cerebellum, and that's just becoming more and more the case as the play goes on. He just becomes more and more emotion driven and more irrational. So he's always himself. He's never going to stop and think this through. Doesn't care.
As the play goes on, you do get the impression you're going to need to feed him possibly slightly more scenery, because he's just going to chew his way through it. As it goes on, it's just starting to build, and I don't mean that inherently in a bad way. It's just, but it does seem to be there's a lot of that going on there. And the friar. It's sort of the passivity of this friar in a weird way. He's just there to be sort of for these people to just watch it. I do wonder if just a firmer hand from the friar at the beginning of the play would have saved a lot of people a lot of pain. I'm just saying he's not very good at this pastoral care duty stuff. Greg.
All I'm going to say is I wish if he gets that far, the citizens of Bononia has a very large amount of luck. Giovanni seemed remarkably calm in that scene, which, as you say, is just dangerous. He's just inherently wrong. I would love to get a psychiatrist's view on this guy. I would just love, because I can see a psychiatrist having great fun doing a program, let's say, for this play, because there's so much wrong with it. But Giovanni's just such an interesting character. And even that last speech wasn't particularly horrible or nasty. That lovely image of the oak, if the oak falls, then a few undershrubs will go with it. And I just thought, yeah, actually, he's like, I really don't care. No, really good. Love it. Love Giovanni all the way through this. In the rock.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I'm glad that Giovanni, doesn't have access to automatic weapons, because the psychology of this guy, it is very similar to a modern mindset that we do encounter, and that's what worries me about this person. He has a sort of his own death wish, but he also wants to. He does seem like he's quite happy to take a lot of people with him. Olga.
Yeah, because I wasn't with you previous days, so I haven't seen a lot of Giovanni, but he strikes me as quite unlikable character. He's so full of himself. I don't know. And I totally agree with Lynn. He seems to be totally ruled by his emotions only. So yeah, pretty dangerous.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we were talking earlier when you did first appear that we were going, well, there's something really nice about the wooing scene and the thing, but even then there was just these little slithers of ice in what he was saying and what he was doing. We were going, you can see the warning signs in this, that some of it looks lovely, but actually the signs are there right from the beginning. Kyle, were you waving?
Yeah, and he also has this weird quality of like the way he can just sort of construct another way of thinking that it's okay for him, that he's just so outside of the kind of morality that everyone else is in, and he's still high-minded. So it's weirdly like a whole other world he's inhabiting. Does remind me of somebody who would go and kill everybody, kind of, and it'd be just fine.
Well, it's a tragedy, so let's. It will. Sometimes people are very inventive, so we shall see as we dive into. We still have, I say, lots of little short scenes. Act 5, Scene 4. We have enter Soranzo, Vasques, and their faithful Banditti.
You will not fail or shrink in the attempt.
I will undertake for their parts. Be sure, my masters, to be bloody enough and as unmerciful as if you were preying upon a rich booty on the very mountains of Liguria. For your pardons, trust to my lord, but for reward you shall trust to none but your own pockets.
You'll make a murder.
Here's gold. Here's more. Want nothing. What you do is noble and an act of brave revenge. I'll make you rich, Banditti, and all free.
Liberty! Liberty!
Hold, take every man a vizard. When ye are withdrawn, keep as much silence as you can, possibly. You know the watchword, till which be spoken, move not. But when you hear that, rush in like a stormy flood. I need not instruct you in your own profession.
No, no, no.
In then, your ends are profit and preferment. Away.
And exit the Banditti.
The guests will all come, Vasques?
Yes, sir. And now let me a little edge your resolution. You see, nothing is unready to this great work, but a great mind in you. Call to your remembrance your disgrace, your loss of honor, Hippolyta's blood, and arm your courage in your own wrongs. So shall you best right those wrongs in vengeance, which you may truly call your own.
'Tis well. The less I speak, the more I burn, and blood shall quench that flame.
Now you begin to turn Italian. This beside, when my young incest monger comes, he will be sharp set on his old bit. Give him time enough. Let him have your chamber and bed at liberty. Let my hot hair have law ere he be hunted to his death, that if it be possible, he may post to hell in the very act of his damnation.
Enter Giovanni.
It shall be so, and see as we would wish. He comes himself first. Welcome, my much-loved brother. Now I perceive you honor me. Ye are welcome. But where is my father?
With the other states, attending on the nuncio of the Pope to wait upon him hither. How's my sister?
Like a good housewife, scarcely ready yet, you are best walked to her chamber.
If you will.
I must expect my honorable friends. Good brother, get her forth.
Oh, you are busy, sir.
Exit Giovanni.
Even as the great devil himself would have it. Let him go and glut himself in his own destruction. Hark, the nuncio's at hand. Good sir, be ready to receive him.
And a flourish. Haven't had a flourish in a while. Yes, enter Cardinal, which will be read by Sarah. Sarah is taking over the reading reins of Annabella as well, coming up. But Annabella is still off stage. But we have entering Cardinal, Florio, Donado, Richardetto, and attendants.
Most reverend Lord, this grace hath made me proud, that you vouchsafe my house. I ever rest your humble servant for this noble favor.
You are our friend, my lord. His Holiness shall understand how zealously you honour St. Peter's vicar in his substitute, our special love to you.
Signors, to you my welcome and my ever best of thanks for this so memorable courtesy. Pleases your grace to walk near.
My lord, we come to celebrate your feast with civil mirth. As ancient custom teacheth, we will go.
Attend his grace there. Signors, keep your way.
And they exit. Again, we have these little scenes which are mostly setting up plot, setting up the thing. The Banditti get a chance to say some dialogue this time as they go off to reap chaos, and they get wizards. They get which so we've had this discussion before about the gendering of masks and terms for masks as well, because I think isn't a wizard a specifically male? Was that we've had that in the past? I think we did. I could be making that up now. But yes, we have more plotting, and then of course Giovanni comes in, and of course the new bit of the plot is he's allowed to have access to his sister, who he has for a while not, because she's been enclosed in her bedchamber and kept separate. And we're reintroduced to the Cardinal. Isn't it lovely to be reintroduced to the Cardinal, who, as we remember from earlier, allowed a murderer to get off scot-free because he was a noble person. So the Cardinal's, I mean, he's probably a pillar of the community and never does anything particularly directly harmful to anyone, but he's also clearly dodgy. So yeah, nice to be reintroduced to the Cardinal. Place your bets now. Who's going to survive this birthday party? Because, you know, I don't know if the Cardinal's marked for death, but he might deserve it. I don't know. Who are the Banditti going to kill? Seems like they're going to just go in and take everybody out. It seems quite a general chaos.
Yeah. And somehow Soranzo plans to get them all pardoned. He must be very wealthy because he's going to bribe the authorities or something. I don't know.
Maybe that's why the Cardinal's there, to just go, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I kind of felt like in the Cardinal's speech, you could definitely play that, oh, I'm pardoning this guy because, you know, he's basically a good guy and he's noble and everything. Basically Grimaldi bought his way. He bribed his way into a pardon. So the Cardinal was quite corruptible. You could imply that. Yeah,
you can go with that. Yeah, maybe the Banditti will just get really over enthusiastic, and as Carl said in the chat, only the Banditti will survive.
Yeah,
just
like what? Or they all they kill each other, you know?
Yeah, well, the Banditti come in and say, "Well, you said kill everyone, didn't you, sir? So sorry, contract is a contract. We're obliged to kill. Yeah, you didn't say not you. Who knows? We shall see. Okay, so. Let us dive into Act 5, Scene 5. As previously we had the Giovanni exiting to visit Annabella. Here we have enter Giovanni and Annabella too, Sarah taking over the reins. Annabella lying on a bed.
What? Changed so soon? Has your new sprightly lord found out a trick in night games more than we could know in our simplicity? Ha! Is it so? Or does the fit come on you to prove treacherous to your past vows and oaths?
Why should you jest at my calamity without all sense of the approaching dangers you are in?
Oh, what dangers are so great as thy revolt? Thou art a faithless sister, else thou knowest malice or any treachery beside would stoop to my bent brows. Why, I hold fate clasped in my fist, and could command the course of time's eternal motion. Hadst thou been one thought more steady than an ebbing sea, and what? You'll now be honest? Huh, that's resolved.
Brother, dear brother, know what I have been, and know that now there's but a dying time twixt us and our confusion. Let's not waste these precious hours in vain and useless speech. Alas, these gay attires were not put on but to some end. This sudden, solemn feast was not ordained to riot in expense. I, that have now been chambered here alone, barred of my guardian or of any else, am not for nothing in an instant freed to fresh access. Be not deceived, my brother. This banquet is an harbinger of death to you and me. Resolve yourself it is, and be prepared to welcome it.
Well then, the schoolmen teach that all this globe of earth shall be consumed to ashes in a minute.
So I have read too.
But 'twas somewhat strange to see the waters burn. Could I believe this might be true, I could believe as well there might be hell or heaven.
That's most certain.
A dream, a dream. Else in this other world we should know one another.
So we shall.
Have you heard so?
For certain.
But do ye think that I shall see you there? You look on me, maybe kiss one another, pray to love, or do as we do here.
I know not that, but good for the present. What do you mean to free yourself from danger? Some way think how to escape. Sure the guests are come.
Look up. Look here. What see you in my face?
Distraction and a troubled countenance.
Death and a swift repining wrath. Yet look. What see you in mine eyes?
Methinks you weep.
I do indeed. These are the funeral tears shed on your grave. These furrowed up my cheeks when first I loved and knew not how to woo. Fair Annabella, should I here repeat the story of my life, we might lose time. Be record all these spirits of the air and all things else that are. The day and night, early and late, the tribute which my heart hath paid to Annabella's sacred love have been these tears which are her mourners now. Never till now did nature do her best to show a matchless beauty to the world, which in an instant else ere it scarce was seen, the jealous destinies required again. Oh, pray, Annabella, pray. Since we must part, go thou white in thy soul to fill a throne of innocence and sanctity in heaven. Pray, pray, my sister.
Then I see your drift. Ye blessed angels, guard me.
Oh, so say I. Kiss me. If ever after time should hear of our fast-knit affections, though perhaps the laws of conscience and of civil use may justly blame us, yet when they but know our loves, that love will wipe away that rigour which would in other incest be abhorred. Oh, give me your hand. How sweetly life doth run in these well-coloured veins, how constantly these palms do promise health, but I could chide with nature for this cunning flattery. Kiss me again. Forgive me.
With my heart.
Farewell.
Will you be gone?
Be dark, bright sun, and make this midday night that thy gilt rays may not behold a deed will turn their splendour more sooty than the poets feign their sticks. One other kiss, my sister.
What means this?
To save thy fame and kill thee in a kiss.
And stabs her.
Thus die. And die by me, by my hand. Revenge is mine. Honor doth love command.
Oh, brother, by your hand.
When thou art dead, I'll give my reasons for it. For to dispute with thy, even in thy death, most lovely beauty would make me stagger to perform this act which I must glory in.
Oh, forgive him, heaven, and me my sins. Farewell, brother, unkind, unkind. Mercy, great heaven.
And dies.
She's dead. Alas, good soul, the hapless fruit that in her womb received its life from me hath had from me a cradle and a grave. I must not dally. This sad marriage bed is in all her best, bore her alive and dead. Soranzo, thou hast missed thy aim in this. I have prevented now thy reaching plots and killed a love for whose each drop of blood I would have pawned my heart. Fair Annabella, however glorious art thou in thy wounds, triumphing over infamy and hate. Shrink not, courageous hand, stand up my heart, and boldly act my last and greatest part.
Exit with the body. And yes, Giovanni has now crossed the threshold to full psychopath. And yeah, creepy death scene. All the stuff of the oh, look, what, who do you see? Do you see, what? Look in my face. What do you see? You see death, and etc. It's yeah, it's I'd say it's not unexpected. I think Sarah went for this after the first session, actually, as a putative death. I don't know if you saw Bagetto getting it though, or for that matter, what happened to Putana earlier. There's been quite a few actually quite surprising deaths. This is the not surprising death. It has to be said. Greg.
I mean, yes, it was scenery chewing at its greatest, but I do wonder, does Annabella know what's going to happen to her during that scene, or when does it become clear to her? And it's a horrible scene in that regard, because I mean, I suppose Giovanni could be played very angry, he could be very loud, but actually I think you need him to be almost at a whisper during that scene, because it is almost a love scene in a most tortured and horrific way. And I love that last speech. You know, he doesn't, even when he's killed his love, he doesn't seem that passionate about it. He is, but he's not.
Well, it's all me all the way.
I love that last line. I'm now going to do my greatest thing.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh
yes, and for those who know what's coming next, he's got to move the body for reasons. Lynn.
Yeah. So Greg was saying a little earlier, he would love to know what a psychiatrist, particularly Freudian, I think, would have to say about Giovanni. And it just occurs to me that this is all about, this seems really narcissistic. It's like it's all about, he's so focused on himself, and it's like, now I'm about to play my greatest part. He chooses his sister as his object of desire because she's the closest to being him. He's really in love with himself.
And actually, there's where the casting really needs to get it right as well. I mean, obviously, you don't want to cast actual brothers and sisters, because that would be really awkward in rehearsals. But you do want people who ideally look similar, to get that frame in there. But yeah, it's all about narcissism for him. It's interesting. Whereas Annabella is not a completely blank space, but is more of a space for us to play with what's going on there, and make some decisions, especially as we know the mother is dead. We've met the father. Father was very active in the first half of the play. We were giving him a C- on the dad stakes. He seemed quite a good dad initially, and then he sort of reverted a bit to type later on. Not a terrible man, but not a great man, potentially. So yeah, it's interesting. What is this family? What's going on there? Lynn again.
But yeah, I think one way you could approach Annabella is like, what's she doing? Narcissists can be very, very charming, like irresistibly charming. They know how to make you feel special. And maybe she has always been a little bit not the special child. Oh, Giovanni's such a good student. He's such a good kid. Oh, he's such a great son. She's just the daughter, but her brother makes her feel special. He makes her feel seen. He makes her feel pretty. I mean, I think that could be part of her backstory.
Greg?
Just thinking about it, and I don't want to give too much away, but I like the fact the mask appears earlier in the play, because if this is Giovanni stage managing something, there's a very theatrical scene potentially coming up where Giovanni obviously has his moment of glory, but actually, usually you'd expect that in a mask, but instead in this play it's twisted and it becomes part of a banquet. I think it seems as though it's a banquet for the nuncio. It just intrigues me that you've had the very theatrical idea come and gone. You've now got something much more personal and much more household.
But in a sense, it's interesting that this is a play of people not stage managing things, because essentially this is a series of party crashes. Because Hippolyta basically crashes a party and goes on the wedding. It turns up on this guy's wedding day and says, "Hi, I'm your ex. I'm going to say some bad stuff about you. Here's my 15-minute stand-up set. Hand me some poison. Oh dear, I've just died." And now we've got this banquet coming on. But in a sense, Giovanni is supposed to be the guest of honor, as it were, in terms of what Soranzo is planning. Soranzo is not expecting what Giovanni is about to do in that sense. He doesn't know what's coming up. So in a sense, he's crashing the party. He's not stage managing it in that sense. Whereas in other revenge tragedies, we do have stage managed murders and things going on. But in a sense, Soranzo's stage managing his own murder party because, of course, he's got all his banditti to turn up. So... yeah, you can't organise a proper murder these days without somebody crashing in. I mean, it's very awkward. Any other thoughts before we go into the close of the play? I think this is the final scene. That is the penultimate scene, but I suspect it's the end. Okay, so Act 5, Scene 6, a banquet. There may be some clashing going on in this with the doubling, but I think nobody talks at the same time. But some of us are on at the same time. But luckily, people have been dying reasonably rapidly, so most people don't get a chance to talk to themselves. Enter the Cardinal, Florio, Donado, haven't seen him for a while, Soranzo, Richardetto, Vasques, and attendants. They take their places.
Remember, sir, what you have to do. Be wise and resolute.
Enough. My heart is fixed. Pleaseth your grace to taste these coarse confections? Though the use of such set entertainments more consists in custom than in cause, yet, reverend sir, I am still made your servant by your presence.
And we your friend.
But where is my brother Giovanni?
Enter Giovanni with a heart upon his dagger.
Here, Soranzo, trimmed in reeking blood that triumphs over death, proud in the spoil of love and vengeance. Fate, or the powers that guide the motions of immortal souls, could not prevent me.
What means this?
Oh, Giovanni.
Shall I be forestalled?
Oh, be not amazed. If your misgiving hearts shrink at an idle sight, what bloodless fear of coward passion would have seized your senses had you beheld the rape of life and beauty which I have acted? Oh, my sister. Oh, my sister.
Huh, what of her?
Oh, the glory of my deed darkened the midday sun, made noon as night. You came to feast, my lords, with dainty fare. I came to feast, too, but I digged for food in a much richer mine than gold or stone or any value balanced. Oh, 'tis a heart. A heart, my lords, which is mine entombed. Look well upon it. Do you know it?
What strange riddle's this?
'Tis Annabella's heart. 'Tis. Why do ye start? Oh, I vow 'tis hers. This dagger's point ploughed up her fruitful womb and left to me the fame of a most glorious executioner.
And art thyself?
Yes, father. What times to come may know how is my fate upon my revenge. List, father, to your ears. I will yield up how much I have deserved to be your son.
What hast thou sayest?
Oh, oh, 9 moons have had their changes since I first thoroughly viewed and truly loved your daughter and my sister.
How, alas, my lord, he's a frantic madman.
Oh, father, no! Oh, for 9 months' space in secret I enjoyed sweet Annabella's sheets. 9 months I lived a happy monarch of her heart and her. Oh, Soranzo, thou knowest this. Thy paler cheek bears the confounding print of thy disgrace. For her too fruitful womb too soon bewrayed the happy passage of our stolen delight, and made her mother to a child unborn.
Incestuous villain!
Oh, his rage belies him.
It does not. 'Tis the oracle of truth. I vow it is so.
I shall burst with fury. Bring the strumpet forth.
I shall, sir.
Exit Vasques.
Do, sir. Have you all no faith to credit yet my triumph? Here I swear by all that you call sacred, by the love I bore my Annabella, which while she lived, these hands have from her bosom ripped this heart. Oh, is it true or no, sir?
Enter Vasques.
It is most strangely true.
Cursed man, have I lived to...
And Florio dies.
Hold up, Florio, monster of children. Think what thou hast done. Broke thy old father's heart. Is none of you dares venture on him?
Let him. Oh, my father, how well his death becomes him in his griefs. Why, this was done with courage. Now survives none of our house but I. Guilt in the blood of a fair sister and a hapless father.
Inhuman scorn of men. Hast thou a thought to outlive thy murders?
Yes, I tell thee, yes. For in my fists I bear the twists of life. Soranzo, see this heart, which was thy wife's, thus I exchanged it royally for thine, and thus, and now brave revenge is mine.
I cannot hold any longer. You, sir, are you grown insolent in your butcheries? Have at you.
And they fight.
Come, I am armed to meet thee.
No, will it not be yet? If this will not, another shall. Not yet. I shall fit you anon. Vengeance!
Enter the Banditti who fight Giovanni.
Welcome, come, more of you, whatever you be, I dare your worst. Oh, I can stand no longer feeble arms of you so soon, nor strength.
Now you are welcome, sir. Away, my masters, all is done. Shift for yourselves, your reward is your own. Shift for yourselves.
Away!
Exeunt the Banditti.
How do you, my lord? See you this. How is't?
Dead, but in death well pleased, that I have lived to see my wrongs revenged on that black devil. Oh, Vasques, to thy bosom let me give my last breath. Let not that lecher live. Oh.
And Soranzo dies.
The reward of peace and rest be with him, my ever dearest lord and master.
Whose hand gave me this wound?
Mine, sir. I was your first man. Have you enough?
Oh, I thank thee. Thou hast done for me what I would have done on myself. Art sure thy lord is dead?
Oh, impudent slave. As sure as I am sure to see thee die.
Think on thy life and end, and call for mercy.
Mercy? Why, I have found it in this justice.
Strive yet to cry to heaven.
Oh, I bleed fast. Death, thou art a guest long looked for. I embrace thee, and I would, oh, my last minute comes. Where'er I go, let me enjoy this grace, freely to view my Annabella's face.
And Giovanni dies.
Strange miracle of justice!
Raise up the city.
Donado, just Greg was able to just switch to the other person who hasn't said anything for 2 acts. Say that again, Greg. Go on. You've died. Somebody else speaks.
Strange miracle of justice!
Raise up the city. We shall be murdered all.
You need not fear. You shall not. This strange task being ended, I have paid the duty to the son, which I have vowed to the father.
Speak, wretched villain. What incarnate fiend hath led thee on to this?
Honesty, and pity of my master's wrongs. For know, my lord, I am by birth a Spaniard, brought forth of my country in my youth by Lord Soranzo's father, whom whilst I live I served faithfully. Since his death I have been to this man as I was to him. What I have done was duty, and I repent nothing. And that the loss of life has not ransomed his.
Say, fellow, knowst thou any yet unnamed of counsel in this incest?
Yes, an old woman, sometimes guardian to this murdered lady.
And what's become of her?
It is in this room she is, whose eyes, after her confession, I have caused to be put out, but kept alive, to confirm what from Giovanni's own mouth you have heard. Now, my lord, what I have done, you may judge of, and let your own wisdom be judge in your own reason.
Peace. First, this woman, chief in these effects, my sentence is that forthwith she be ta'en out of the city, for example's sake, there to be burned to ashes.
'Tis most just.
Be at your charge, Donado. See it done.
I shall.
But for me, if death 'tis welcome, I have been honest to the son as I was to the father.
Fellow, for thee, since what thou didst was done not for thyself, being no Italian, we banish thee forever, to depart within 3 days. In this we do dispense with grounds of reason, not of thine offence.
This conquest is mine, and I rejoice that a Spaniard outwent an Italian in revenge.
Exit Vasques.
Take up these slaughtered bodies, see them buried, and all the gold and jewels, or whatsoever, confiscate by the canons of the church. We seize upon to the Pope's proper use.
Your Grace's pardon, thus long I live disguised, to see the effect of pride and lust at once brought both to shameful ends.
What? Richardetto? Whom we thought for dead?
Sir, what's it for you?
Your friend?
Oh, we shall have time to talk at large of all, but never yet incest and murder have so strangely met. Of one so young, so rich in nature's store, who could not say? 'Tis pity she's a whore.
And exit on the importance of being earnest closing line of the play, which, yeah, shall we say is a problem. The title is a problem for several reasons. One is it's really not the way to end the play. But the play ends in all sorts of... I mean, poor Putana. It does seem to be she's the one who's supposed to be dragged out and burnt at the stake. I mean, could be Annabella, but just from within the context of the speech it's going. Vasques gets away with banishment, which seems quite lenient, considering he has murdered and blinded someone. But then the Cardinal isn't a worker of justice. We know this. So the play is playing on levels in all sorts of different ways. Florio dies of a heart attack, which is not, well, it's not necessarily expected, but it's not surprising. I think it's pretty pretty hard on the old the chap's heart.
Mhm.
It wasn't clear because we didn't read. There wasn't a stage direction for it. But Giovanni, when he's saying and thus, he's clearly stabbing Soranzo at that particular point. So when Soranzo just randomly falls over and dies, that's not actually unexpected. The Banditti come in and take out Giovanni. Though Vasques is the one who gets the killing blow perhaps in there. The Banditti are arguably not needed, I would argue, within this. Vasques could just do this all by himself. There's something very odd about that. And then Richardetto just goes, oh yes, do you remember the C plot? Hi, I'm the C plot. And you just go, Richardetto, you're alive? And that's sort of why the ending there just doesn't. It's like that is actually a plot strand that the playwright has failed to really integrate here. He's sort of he's got it flapping around. We were talking about how well structured this was earlier, and it really was. And it's just, you just feel this session, just one or two little loose ends flapping around that need tidying up. Or, if Richardetto just said, when he said, I'm going to send my niece off to a nunnery, if he just said, I'm off, this place is too dangerous, I think that would have been fine. And actually, I wouldn't have found his niece's exit there quite so annoying, actually, if he wrote himself out of the narrative. But yeah. So yeah, it packs a lot in. Ends of revenge tragedies often are a little untidy. Thoughts from the room, Kyle?
I love that the Cardinal robs the place for the Pope right at the end there. That was so unexpected.
It's just...
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The Cardinal is not a figure of justice in this play at all, is he? I mean, he really isn't. He's not there to deliver justice to Vasques. He's not there to deliver justice to Putana or anybody at all. He's there to just go, yeah, should we rob the place? Yeah, fab. Lynn, then Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, he's just heard about an incestuous relationship, seen this psycho come in with his sister's heart on his dagger and then murder his sister's husband, and then someone drops dead of a heart attack, all this death and carnage and it occurs to, it's like he even has the presence of mind. It's like, oh, by the way, these people are rich, we're going to take all their stuff. Who would even take that at that moment?
I mean, if someone brought up, I think Eric brought up the Borgias the other day, and it's sort of going, if the Cardinal's been around the Borgias for a while, I don't know if temporarily that actually works, but just the idea of wouldn't you have been around them for a while? None of this is surprising, really. Sarah?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, incest kind of popes, it's not a kind of it's not an uncommon thing at this point. I was basically going to say what Lynn said. He's such a quick thinker. He's an admirable quick thinker. I mean, not only does he have the presence of mind to go, oh yeah, okay, so the father and son are both dead, and the sister's dead, and her husband's dead, so there's no one immediate to inherit. Right, I'm having that. But he also gets rid of anybody who could be gossiping about the fact that he's done this. He packs Vasques off. I mean, Vasques gets out of there, he's quite fortunate, really. He just gets exiled because he's a Spaniard. And Putana, who wasn't even there for any of that. I really get the impression that's him, just tidying up loose ends. Oh, she knew about the incest. She was a retainer to the family. This guy put her eyes out, so she's gonna have a vendetta. If we let her, let's just get rid of her. Let's just burn her at the stake. He's quite tidy. He's like I say, the quick thinking is admirable. Really, he's clearly done this before. You can imagine he's probably known in the Vatican as the cleaner or something. He goes around all the houses just tidying up the loose ends, sending the fortune back to the Vatican, selling off the properties, pocketing the loot.
There's a moment there at the end where he could actually just end the play, where take up these slaughtered bodies, see them buried, turns up stage.
Yeah. No, he doesn't
and all
do
the
that.
golden jewels.
Yeah.
Just turns back, or whatsoever. Yeah, confiscate the cannons of the. We seize upon the Pope's proper use. There we are. And then cut Richardetto from this moment. We shall have time to talk at large of all, but never yet. Incest and murder have so strangely met. Exit. Cut the last two lines because they're awful.
Perfectly adequate closing couplet right there.
Yeah, I think that works really nicely. I mean, we've got Donado just suddenly talking at the end. It's like, hi, do you remember me from Act 3?
No, I don't.
No.
Completely. Yeah.
And that,
It's
I
even
think...
funnier by my entrance straight after we exit.
Yeah, well, I mean, timing. But yeah, Donado is from the comic subplot, and he's still here at the end. He's the uncle to the idiot who gets murdered, poor Baguetto, and of no justice for Baguetto, of course. So yeah, I'm stuck as we've sort of vaguely mentioned, but there have been versions of this which have played fast and loose with the subplots. And do you trim them back? Can you remove them? Should you remove them, or play with them? And I am a bit torn because part of me is going, I quite liked the lightness of tone, and then actually killing the clown sends this in a darker direction. But I am sort of looking at a quick exit for Richardetto after the mask in the wedding mask in Act 4. That may be the way to go because he doesn't serve a function anymore. And yeah, also thoughts from the room on Vasquez' life story. He suddenly delivers this da 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 da. Let me tell you my background, Sarah.
For just a split second there, I thought he was going to turn to the Cardinal and said, "You kill my father. Prepare to die." It's like, oh, hello, it's the Spaniard. He's been looking for you all this time. You've got 6 fingers on your hand. I mean, it was just so random, that little backstory. It's like, oh, we're finding this out about this character now, just before he's being exiled, right at the very end of the play. Like, if that was important to put in, why was I mean, I haven't been here. I've missed most of this play, so I don't know. Maybe there was more, but it's like, why was that not put in like earlier in the play so that we could have a bit of character development for him? Because I mean, he turns out to be really, I haven't seen him since Act 2 because I missed the middle session, but like, he turns out to be really important at the end here. So
this feels like an actor turning to the writer in rehearsals going, so why am I doing these things? And the writer going, oh, okay, I'll just write some lines in. Yeah. So you married King Yrcanos and X. Yeah, fine. It's just this thing where someone's asked for this backstory to be added, and it's like, it doesn't. I'd cut that. I see no point to any of it at all. Let him. I don't care why he's doing it. He's a servant to a bad guy. He does bad things. I'm fine with that. Lynn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I want to get rid of that is I want Vasquez to be a younger man, not someone who's served Soranzo's father and Soranzo in turn. I want him to be more contemporary with Soranzo because his loyalty is like almost pathological. And when Soranzo dies, he says something about my dear master. So I think as long as we are going to, have a play about taboo relationships, I want to make Vasquez kind of in love with Soranzo, erotically in love with yeah, he's in love with his master. That's why he wants to do anything and everything for him. But of course, that's a hopeless attachment, class-wise, gender-wise. So a sort of echo of the taboo relationship.
Yeah, because there was that earlier bit when it seemed almost like he had a bit of a thing going on for Hippolyta as well, or when we weren't sure what his motivations were, and I was sort of going, is this a weird sub-dom thing going on here? And it was very confusing. But that's not to say he can't do both. Alan?
Yeah, I don't know that you need to actually change that description to make Vasques roughly contemporary with Soranzo.
Yeah,
it could have been a young servant to Soranzo's father, maybe almost in the earlier trope of the servant who is effectively there as the playfellow, oblique schoolmate of the heir to the.
They were kind of raised together. Yeah. So
he was there as the scapegoat. You know, if Soranzo made a mistake, Vasques was probably the one who got the beating for it.
Yes, and it's a question of how old Soranzo is as well, because he seems to be coded as reasonably young, but he does seem to have the authority of someone a bit older, and it's an interesting question. What's the age difference potentially with him and Hippolyta? Because casting does make quite a big difference to some of these characters in terms of, you know, how they hold themselves, how old they are, where they're placed in society. This is a play playing with all of those elements, actually, and. You know, even if it has got a little untidy in Act 5, I feel there's some, the momentum of the play possibly has outstripped the pace of keeping all the plates spinning. It still works. I'm not that against it, I have to say. I think there's a lot that needs just mind, and even the cuts we're talking about cutting a few lines here and a few lines there. We're not talking about making swinging changes to the dramaturgy here. Per se, because it really is exploring a lot. I definitely cut the last two lines, but you know, but then I'm quite keen with the title I talked about the other day, which is "Love Me or Kill Me." I think that's
it's totally the title.
That's because this is a question actually for our general point, which, you know, this is a video going out on YouTube. Will YouTube shut down my channel if I put out videos called "'Tis Pity She's a Whore"? So that, you know, for anyone watching this and confused as to why we don't have the full title, we've been discussing this, and I think I'm not going to take the risk, because I don't mind if they pull a video down, but if an automated process flags this as problematic, and I lose my channel, I would be quite annoyed about that. So I you know, regardless of the problematicness of the title, you know, whether we should call it that or not, you know, it's also how people search for it. So it's a sort of, you know, I'll have to put it in the metadata or something. I don't know. I always call it "'Tis Pity" anyway, which I think is an acceptable contraction. I certainly wouldn't put the full title on a poster, or at least not with the lettering. I might put the lettering very, very small. Very small. So it's there if you want it. Anyway, any more for Act 5 before we go into final thoughts, Sarah?
I don't know if I've just been ruined by too much early modern drama. I think I'm maybe battle hardened after Spanish tragedy, but I was actually expecting that to be a lot more gruesome than it was. I mean, I missed the whole session yesterday. I'm aware from what you've said and what's been written in the chat that, like, there was at least one murder in the middle, and also someone got their eyes gouged out. So, you know, ick. But this final scene, I mean, I was convinced. I wrote it in the chat. I was convinced Giovanni was going to eat his sister's heart. He didn't. But I was just steeling myself, waiting for that to happen, because I'm like, oh, this is going to get so nasty. And really, I mean, yeah, he comes in with the heart on the knife, and it's like, ew. But then, you know, there's a bunch of fisticuffs, and people get run through, and the body count is, I mean, you know, for an early modern drama, it's not actually that high. And
eight people die.
Really? What, in that end scene?
No, overall in the play.
Yeah, okay, but in that end scene,
if we include Putana being burned at the stake.
Yeah. I mean, Soranzo and Giovanni, I mean, everybody's just waiting for that to happen so they can cheer. So, like, you know, those two deaths we're expecting, and we're kind of almost looking forward to them because they're both so ghastly. Yeah, Annabella's murder was horrible, but I mean, really, just because it was so creepy. I mean, that was an absolute masterclass in how to absolutely, you know, freak out your audience with a murder. You know, in spite of the fact that murders happen in tragedies all the time. That was a really that was a really, really, like, disturbing one. So that was, you know, really well written. But, like, I don't know. I didn't have this sense of like I think it's Spanish tragedy and Hoffman combined. I'm just like, where was the flaming crown? Where where was somebody's tongue being ripped out? Like what? Like biting their own tongue out? Like what? Like where? No one got hung up on an arras. No body was left, hanging from the ceiling. It's like what?
He does come on with a bloody heart and covered in blood. I mean, he's there. I mean, the play it reminded me of was Tancred and Gismunda, which is a much earlier play, which ends with it's the father who's obsessing about his daughter and about her getting creepy about her remarrying. He again, what happens is he chops the heart of her lover out. Puts it in a cup and gives it to her, and she pours some poison in it and drinks that and dies at the end. It's one of those things where this kind of imagery and that's sort of in a sense that's a slightly easier thing to stage. You just need a cup and some and you can do the drinking, blood goes down, so in a sense you're right. Visually you don't get he could always eat it. You could have a bit of that. You can put that in, Sarah. If you want that, we can make that happen.
I think if I was directing it, I would totally put that in, but that would be fine because I wouldn't have to watch it.
Yeah. Yes, we can peddle this stuff. We don't have to sit through it. Sorry, Lynn.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sarah makes a good observation that there's relatively little collateral damage. Often in Jacobean drama, a lot of people get taken out by friendly fire, as it were. I mean, I didn't mean to kill that person. The wrong person drinks the poison or whatever. It's not really sort of the volume, the number of bodies. The effect is something else. It's the shockingness of the taboo relationship, and Giovanni's just over the top craziness that give the ending its power, rather so he's going for sort of intensity rather than scale.
I think I miscounted. I think it's only 7 actually. Anyway, so running count. I will go over that. But anyway, fair enough. I feel for Florio, but poor
just
guy.
dies of natural causes, has a stroke, has a heart attack, whatever.
Yeah. Which is why I suppose Donado is still there, because someone's got to say something.
A different ending. Donado and Richardetto and the Cardinal could have been taken out. Vasques could have been condemned.
Or we could move Florio's heart attack until the very end, give him Donado's line so we don't have to reintroduce him in the second half, because he doesn't really do anything in the second half, and he might be more useful as Banditti and general background servant things if we need to punch the numbers up. There's little trick. It's irritating in the sense that we don't have additional doubling parts. There's quite a few people in the first half of the play who don't really have much to do except be Banditti and perhaps additional servants in the second half of the play. But there might be some cunning doubling things we can do, because I am interested in the maximalist and the minimalist version of this text, as I am with any text. We can trim some of the subplots back a bit and maybe get some more doubling in there, so that we can get the cast size down. Because the principles, it's difficult to get it less than if you don't start interfering with the subplots. It's hard to get it down to much less than 10, but if you trim some of those subplots out, then potentially you can get it down to less. That may create structural problems that need to be covered. Sarah?
I think that's such a good idea to move Florio's death to the end. Obviously there's the practical reasons of cutting characters, but also just from a structural point of view. I mean, again, it's difficult for me to judge because I haven't been here for the whole play, but I think one of the reasons why I'm saying, oh god, there's not enough people dying at the end of this tragedy, is that actually I don't really care about any of them. And that's partly because I haven't been here, but also it's because Soranzo dies, good riddance. Giovanni dies, well, finally. you know, shame no one didn't take him out earlier. And actually, if the play, if you got kind of all of that out of the way, if you had that sort of schlocky moment with, you know, the villains dying at each other's hands, and then, you know, it kind of all goes quiet, and then Florio keels over from a heart attack just from everything that he's seen, and then quick as a flash the Cardinal was like, oh right, grab the jewels. I think that would be a much more affecting ending and a much more devastating ending, because in a way, like, Florio's death is just kind of lost in the middle of all the hoopla, whereas actually he is the collateral damage, you know, that Lynn was talking about. He is the one that you care about, because he's kind of an innocent in all this, I assume. I mean, again, I'm making assumptions here based on what you've said about the fact that he's, you know, he's been fine. He's not been a great dad, but he's not been terrible. So it's like, you know, there is maybe where you can actually get your audience's empathy and you know, kind of put some heart into the very end of it, and then just kind of smack it away when the Cardinal like starts, you know, gathering up the gold.
Well, the other thing is, actually, if you give Donado's lines to the Friar, that adds a really nice spin to that end point, because it's like, you know, Cardinal says, you know, let her be burnt, and the Friar, who is complicit in all of this, goes, "'Tis most just, be it your charge, see it done, I shall." And we're left, the only people left standing are the clergymen, who are ordering burnings and lootings. I mean, yeah, that could be, and you know, the only people left alive are really complicit murderers. Okay, well, we're well past actually extra time. So Kyle, do you have any final thoughts to throw in about the play overall?
I was just thinking, with the spectacle of that heart on a knife and all of that, I bet an audience would hardly notice all the loose ends and the, you know, because that's all you're gonna remember is, you know, that.
Yeah, it's the driving home in the car afterwards. Oh, hang on, moment. But in the moment of the play itself, yeah, they're probably fine. Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it does work apart from those few loose ends left dangling at the end. And I think an acting edition or a director's working copy would certainly need a heck of a lot more stage directions than we actually had, because it would explicate quite a number of the things that happened. We were going, wait a minute, who stabbed so and so? Because they're not actually cued in the script. But I mean, it's got quite a reputable modern performance history, I think, this one, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, it pops up. Yeah, it does okay. In that sense, it's not a priority for us, in a sense, because someone will do it. You know, if we don't, but that doesn't mean to say we shouldn't do it, because it's quite good.
Yeah, and I did a little bit of research while you were talking earlier, and the play title in full does appear on several searches on YouTube.
Well, we'll take it under advisement. We've got a while before I drop this, so I'll do some research before I do a final choice. Greg, any final thoughts?
Excuse the pun, but oh, what a juicy part for the final day. Oh wow! I mean, that Annabella's death scene was just horrendous, for all the right reasons. I mean, it sets up that last scene beautifully. And yeah, I would love. I'm now going to go off and have a look and see if there's anybody who has written a psychiatrist's point of view of Giovanni, because I think that it would make for some very interesting reading. And all I'm going to say is, yes, nice bottle of Chianti and some fava beans, please, for an April, if we ever do a second look.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he'd probably pass the psychopath test, or certainly on that sort of general area. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Just that, you know, we're talking about, like, how do you trim it down? How much of the subplots do you keep? My inclination would be, yeah, let's get rid of Richardetto and Donado before the final scene. But I really want to keep the Brigetto subplot Partly because his death scene is so interesting and so like emotionally complex. It's sort of absurd, but it's sort of heartbreaking. And I want to keep that whole sort of semi-comic subplot because I think otherwise that this plays maybe just a little too much. We kind of need to keep the audience in mind of the fact that it's just a play. It's just a play. So I think the absurdity of the comic plot reminds us on a sort of not conscious level that with the main plot is also absurd. That it's storytelling. It's it's the newspaper tabloid. It's not real life. Because otherwise it might just be too much to take.
Yes, there is always a tonal issue sometimes of making sure you don't shift too much. You've got to put your comedy out there strategically so that nobody thinks the whole play is a comedy, because sometimes this kind of extremity of action can lead to giggles, and you've got to be very careful about that. Can't always control that, but there's a reason why you do it in an indoor theatre as well, because that's how you control the darkness. Sarah, you've only been here for the first session and half of this session. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I was only there for half the first session as well, really. So yes. I don't really feel qualified to comment. I've enjoyed what I've read. It seems to have lots of potential, which I'm sure it has. No doubt that's why it's still done relatively often. I was very taken in the first session with the gender politics, and I don't know how much of that that dynamic came through in the last two sessions of the play. By the time I got here today, it was all about the murders. So although I did think Annabella's death scene was really well done, her murder was just like, yeah, you could do a lot with that. You could do a lot with the gender politics in this play, I think, just based on what I've seen. But I haven't really seen enough of it. So if there's a second look, I will hopefully be able to turn up for that.
Yes, I think it's reasonably feasible for us to be able to do that. Our numbers for second looks are not always enough, or our numbers are not always enough to do second looks. That's always a bit of tricky because we can double when we're just stopping and starting in this way in extreme ways. It's harder to do that when you're trying to run the whole play at pace. I think Annabella, the sexual politics of Annabella is probably the thorniest element because she veers alarmingly from really great stuff and then a very conventional reading, and I think Lynn was saying earlier, it's going to be hard to cover the joins sometimes. So there's a slight inconsistency. That's not to say that there's not a lot to mine here, but sometimes the text does disappoint a little bit. But it's an early modern play by a bloke, so are we really surprised? But there is still a lot to mine, and we may do that in the future. All that remains, however, at this stage is thank all the wonderful readers. You too can be a reader. You can always join us. There are sign-up forms every week. You can plan months ahead sometimes, depending on when they go out. You can always join us if you want. Sign up and be a reader and be here with us. The more of you there are, the more likely we're to do second looks and bigger runs at things. Whereas at the moment we're mostly doing first looks because of the numbers that we have. So maybe we will see you in the future. You will not just be a viewer, you will be a participant. So all that remains, thank all the readers that we have for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Let my hot hair have the law.